Hello. So, paper one, Germany, you've got 6 questions to answer. Now, questions 1, 2, and 3 are all linked because they look at 2 different interpretations or people's views. And there'll be 2 different views of the same person, maybe the impact of Hitler or Stresemann in this case, or an event like impact on children or was the Weimar government success. They'll be very clearly different. And the first question, question 1, always starts off with the same stem. And we've got it highlighted there. It always starts off with, how does interpretation B differ from interpretation A about? And you'll need to explain your answer using both interpretations. Now it's worth 4 marks. So as we know, we're going to write a paragraph. We're going to spend about 5 minutes on this. And in this example, the focus is what life was like for women in Nazi Germany. So, the first thing you do is obviously look at your 2 interpretations. We've got interpretation A there. They command their men and women to have more children. Women have been deprived of all rights, except that of childbirth and labour. Careers and professions are closed to them. So clearly we've got quite a negative view towards women there. This is from a book by an American woman called Martha Dodd, published in 1939, and between 1933 to 37, she lived in Berlin with her father, the US ambassador to Germany. She held communist views and was critical of the Nazi regime. So that's the provenance there. We'll need that for question 2 later. Let's look at interpretation B. I wanted to be a perfect housewife. We were taught everything that was necessary to be a woman: housekeeping, being a mother, and a good wife. My main ambition was to become a mother. This is from an interview in 2001 with a German woman called Gertrude Reber. Now, she attended bridal schools in Nazi Germany, which aimed to train young women to be good housewives, and she eventually married an SS officer. And again, we'll come back to that provenance later on. We don't need that for this question. So what do we do here? Well, the first thing we do is we plan our answer out quickly. We read the content only of both interpretations, and we work out what the difference is, and it should be clear what the difference is. And then we highlight a quote from each interpretation that shows this difference, because we'll need this in our answer. And as always, I've told you before, in your exam, your sources and your interpretation sheets, you highlight them, draw on them, plan things out on them. They shouldn't be coming back clean. You should be making notes and using them. So let's go back to these interpretations then. And clearly, we're just focused on the content here. So I've removed the provenance. And interpretation A, well, this is clearly a negative view of the life of women. I've highlighted that quote there, that women have been deprived of all rights. And interpretation B, this is a more positive view for women under Nazi Germany. So I've just highlighted this quote here. We were taught everything that was necessary to be a woman. 2 different opinions of the role of women under the Nazis. Once we've done that, we'll start writing. So the question asks, how is interpretation B different from interpretation A? So we'll start off with B first of all. So we're going to explain the view that interpretation B has of the event and give a quote to support the view. So I've just written that here. We're not writing too much. Interpretation B, I've just put ints there for short. You can do that in your exam. Is positive about the impact the Nazi Party had on women's lives when they came to power. I know this as the interpretation says, we were taught everything that was necessary to be a woman. So there I've explained what the view is, and I've given a short quote. I'm not writing too much there. Next I use interpretation A. So, however, interpretation A is negative about the impact the Nazi Party had on women's lives when they came to power. And I know this as the interpretation says, women have been deprived of all rights. And the final thing I'm doing is just a concluding sentence. I should have done enough to get full marks here, but it's just to make it easy for my examiner. I go back and answer the question. Overall, the interpretations differ about the impact the Nazi Party had on women's lives when they came to power. And you can see when we've got it all together, this is how we get our full marks. It's not too much I'm writing here. Now, please be aware, this is the only question in your exams for history where you don't need any knowledge of the historical period. And that means anyone can get full marks regardless of your level of knowledge. You just need to read them and work out the difference between the 2. Now, only focus on the content here. I know you've got information about the provenance. We'll need that for question 2, but we don't talk about that here at all. And don't get those interpretations mixed up in your exam. This is where the planning comes in. You can imagine if I'd written about interpretation A being positive, interpretation B being negative here, I would have lost marks. So just take your time, plan it, don't drop any silly marks here. And finally, don't write too much. There's not much here at all, about 10 lines tops in the exam, 5 minutes. It doesn't take a lot here to be able to get the marks. What's the difference? And prove where you've got that from with a short quote from each.